Welcome back to ICC and our recap of round 3 of the Olympiad. It was a day full of drama with plenty of giants falling and a lot of team upsets. In the open section, Italy sensationally defeated 5th seed Netherlands, Lithuania edged out 7th seed Germany, and there were plenty of other tied matches too. In another major story of the day, world number 1 Magnus Carlsen made his debut at the 2024 Olympiad. It was not without adventures though. Magnus jumped off a bike and stormed into the playing hall as he arrived 10 minutes late for his game. Turns out, traffic that day was horrible in Budapest and he figured it would be easier to bike instead. With that comment, let's jump to the games. There were many interesting games this round, but this masterpiece particularly stood out to me. Let's take a look. Here we have the game Arjun Erigaisi versus Peter Prohaszka from the India versus Hungary B match. Now, most of you are probably familiar with Arjun as he is the current world number 4 and also India's number 1 chess player. However, for those of you who are not familiar, Peter Prohaszka is also a very strong player. He was previously rated 2600 and he studied at the world-famous Webster University under the tutelage of Susan Polgar. So let's see what's happening here. In this position, we have opposite side castling, which normally means both sides are going to try to get to their opponent's king as fast as possible. I would say that here, White's attack is already faster because he has the 2 rooks, the bishop from f5, the queen is pointing on h6, and it looks like things are ready for a tactical shot to decide the game. So in this position, Arjun followed with the move d5. The idea is to get rid of this defender and start creating problems alongside this diagonal. So in case black took on c3, queen takes c3, it will be pretty hard to defend against rook h6 in the future, as the g7 pawn is now pinned. If rook f6, then white would continue with rook takes g7, queen takes g7, rook takes g7, and in this position, white should be easily winning as the black king is very vulnerable and all of black's pawns are going to start falling pretty soon. Anyway, this is not what happened in the game. The game continued with c takes d5, just capturing the pawn. Arjun continued with e5, getting rid of this bishop. Bishop takes h4, e6. Notice how this diagonal is becoming a problem, because if the rook moves to e7, we again have this resource of queen takes h6 as the pawn is pinned. That's why Peter played the move rook f6, even offering to give up the exchange, only if that would mean this diagonal would be safe. Game followed with e7, a fascinating deflection. Queen takes e7, and here Arjun finished the game in incredible style. He played the move queen takes h6, seemingly giving up a queen for nothing, right? Let's see what happens after g takes h6. Now, black would be really happy if this was indeed a free queen, but unfortunately for him, after rook takes h6, the black rook from h6 cannot capture. Again, it is all because of the bishop from c3. Well, after rook h6, checkmate was unavoidable, but Peter played it out because it was just such a stunning combination. The game ended with queen h7 and rook h7 mate. The next game I want to pay attention to is of another Hungarian GM. This one is from the match Hungary A versus Austria. This is board 4, and we have the position from Benjamin Gledura versus Felix Blohberger. At a first glance, it appears that White is in trouble in this position, as knight d3 is a double attack. It attacks the rook on f5, and it also threatens to take the pawn on c2 at the same time. There is one crucial detail though. This doesn't work. White has a better tactic. So in the game, Benjamin continued the game with knight takes d4, not caring about giving up the exchange, because in return, he will get a very strong attack. Black has no choice but to take the rook, because otherwise his knight would be trapped. So the game went on with knight takes f5, knight takes f5, g6. This is an only move, as otherwise there would be queen takes g7 checkmate. And here, Gledura again demonstrated his passion and understanding of the game. He didn't rush with taking on h6, as that wouldn't bring him much benefit. After king g7, rook f1, Black has the defense f6, and it is not so clear of how White is going to continue the attack. Let's say if knight f5, then there is king f7, and there isn't any immediate winning blow. For this reason, Benjamin decided to play another move instead of knight takes h6. He played the move rook f1. It is the same idea as in the previous variation, but there's a catch. In this position, Black cannot organize his defense with f6 because g6 would be hanging and the queen would simply take it. So after rook f1, the game continued with queen d8, knight takes h6, king g7, rook takes f7, sacrificing another piece just to bring the black king out. King takes h6, and here, as white, we already have forced checkmate. The game went on with queen h3, king g5, an only square, queen e3, continuing to harass the black king, king h5, rook h7, and after the forced king g4, white ended the game with h3 checkmate. How cool is that? Have you ever checkmated someone with a pawn? The last game from the open section I want to highlight is Garcia Pantoja versus Magnus Carlsen. Now, keep in mind, this was a very important match for Norway, as in the previous day, they tied their match versus Canada. This meant that if they wanted to stay in contention for the medals, they really needed to win this match versus Colombia. Time for Magnus to make an appearance, right? So there we have it. Magnus has just played the move knight h4 check. It is evident that the white king is under a lot of pressure, as there are not that many defenders around it. But are things really that bad? Turns out they are. So let's see what are White's alternatives in this position. He could play king h2, but that would lose the game on the spot because of knight f3, forking the king and the queen and winning tons of material. So king h2 doesn't work. The other options that White has are to go on the first rank, where rook d1 and again losing the queen would follow, which not ideal. And the final option is to go for king h3. However, this doesn't save the game either, as after the black rook joins the party with rook d3 check, things are getting really hot for the white monarch. If king takes h4, there is queen h6 mate. And if the move knight g3, queen h6 is super strong again, as there will be knight f3 and queen h2 on the next move, or knight f5. There are simply way too many ideas that white simply cannot defend against. That's why after knight h4, white simply took the knight, so queen h4. This posed other problems though, as the game followed with queen g1, king f3, rook d3 again. It's very important to have every piece in the attack. And now the game ended with king e2, queen d1 checkmate. I would say that's a pretty nice ending position and a fantastic start for Magnus Carlsen. It is evident that he's here, he's back, he's strong, and he's going to try to lead Team Norway to the medals. Well, let's wish him luck with that, and let's take a look at the women's section. In the women's section, we saw the first GM versus GM game of the tournament, as Switzerland's Alexandra Kosteniuk defeated India's Harika Dronavali. There were also plenty of team surprises in the women's section as well. On board 2, underdogs Uzbekistan defeated local heroes Hungary with 2.5, 1.5. On boards 3 and 4, favorites also tied their matches, as Poland couldn't overcome Greece and as Georgia drew their match versus Romania. In other results of the day, the strong Azeri team tied their match versus 26 seed Argentina, and 8 seed Germany also couldn't win against 28 seed Slovenia. With that being said, let's jump to some game highlights. The first game from the women's section I want to feature is from Team USA versus Canada match. Here as white, we have American star Carissa Eep as she takes on Canada's Leon Shan. The game went on with queen h5. Black is moving her queen away and saving it from the bishop on d3. However, h5 would soon prove to be not a safe place as it looks. The game went on with bishop b4, attacking the bishop on e7, bishop takes b4, and rook g5 check, attacking both the king and the queen. Black played the move king h8, counting on the fact that if white takes on h5, black would respond with bishop takes d2, and she would actually be a full piece up. However, is this what Carissa really had in mind? Absolutely not. After king h8, she responded with queen takes b4. The trick in this position being that after queen g5, white has the move queen f8, queen g8, and queen f6 with inevitable checkmate. Seeing this tactic, the Canadian woman replied with knight c6, the idea being that the rooks are going to be connected and rook f8 is not going to be hanging anymore. However, it was already too late, as after queen takes f8, rook takes f8, rook h5, white is a full rook up and with no real problems to convert her advantage. For this reason, black decided to simply resign into moves, as a full rook down is not a joke. The next two games from the women's section I picked came to define the round, as those blunders helped underdogs overturn their matches against the favorites. In this game, we have Zsoka Gaal from Hungary as white, facing Uzbekistan's Afruza Khamdamova. If you remember, that match ended with 2.5, 1.5 in Uzbekistan's favor, and this was actually the game that decided the outcome. Here, white should have gone for the move rook h4, avoiding the trade of rooks, and after g6, simply including the rook back into the game with e4. After de, rook takes e4, the position would be objectively equal. However, the game saw another continuation. In this position, White went for the move h4 instead. However, this simply loses on the spot. The reason for that is trade of rooks is now unavoidable. And once the rooks are off the board, Black would be able to create an outside pass pawn that is simply unstoppable. The White king is too far away. So the game continued with a5, king g2, b5, king g3, a4, e6, White's last try, b4, rook takes f4, in order to free the f8 square for the king. King takes f4, b4, Black wants to be as fast as possible in promoting the pawn to a queen. King e5, and here this was the last bit of calculation needed for Black to win the game. If she went for a3 right away, she would actually lose, as White would be able to secure the way for her pawn after b takes a3, b takes a3, king d6, a2, e7, and now e8 comes on the next move, and it's impossible to stop it. If a1 queen, queen e8, and White would be winning as she would get both the h and the d pawns. However, there's a simple way to avoid that, as Black is not forced to go a3 right away. She can instead go king f8, which is what happened in the game, where after e4, a3, king d6, Black simply responded with the move king to e8, and now her a-pawn was unstoppable. So that is how the game and the match ended. The last game of the day I want to focus on is from another dramatic match, Georgia versus Romania. Here is White, Alessia Ciolacu took on her GM opponent, Khotenashvili from Georgia. The last move from the game is queen e4, and it appears that Black has everything under control. The game continued with rook takes g5, seemingly offering a knight for free. Under time pressure, Bella went for it as she played the move queen takes e2. However, she rather soon realized that nothing comes for free, and unfortunately for her, the game ended pretty quickly. After queen takes h7, king takes h7, rook h3, she was forced to play queen h5, giving up the queen, and after rook h5, the game ended with a checkmate. It was also a very important game, as this allowed Romania to tie their match versus Georgia. Anyway, this was for today's round. Thank you for watching us here on ICC, and we'll see you tomorrow for our next recap of the round.